The impossible student commander Zephyra's crystalline fingers drummed against the observation deck's railing, creating a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Below her, in the vast training arena of the Galactic Academy, a single human cadet stood alone. Maya Chen, the human, called herself, 23 cycles old by human counting, which meant practically nothing to Zephyra's species, the Velkari, who lived for thousands of years. What mattered was that this particular human had been at the Academy for 6 standard months, and she still could not perform even the most basic magical task. The Academy floated in the neutral space between 3 star systems, a massive structure built by the Council of Joined Worlds over 2 millennia ago. Here, young beings from across the galaxy came to learn the ancient arts of magic, the fundamental forces that allowed civilizations to bend reality itself. Every species had their own flavor of magic. The Velkari commanded crystal and light. The Thoraxians manipulated time in small bursts. The singing ones from the Krellic system could weave matter itself into new forms with their voices. Even the humble Gribnaks, barely intelligent by galactic standards, could make plants grow with a touch. But humans were supposed to be the legendary ones. The Creator's children, as the old texts called them. The species whose very existence had ended the War of Ashes 10,000 years ago. When humanity had been discovered 3 years ago on their little blue world, the entire galaxy had celebrated. Finally, the lost children had been found. Finally, the species of ultimate magical potential had returned to the stars, except Maya Chen could not cast a single spell. Zephyra watched as Instructor Palix, a patient Thoraxian with silver scales and kind eyes, demonstrated a simple levitation charm for the 100th time. A small sphere rose from the ground, hovering at eye level, spinning slowly. Palix gestured to Maya, encouraging her to try. The human stepped forward, her dark hair pulled back in what her species called a ponytail, her brown eyes focused with desperate intensity. She raised her hands exactly as instructed. She spoke the words of power in flawless Velkari. She pushed her will into the universe, demanding that it obey. Nothing happened. The sphere sat on the ground like a dead stone. Maya's shoulders slumped. Even from this distance, Zephyra could see the tears forming in the human's eyes. Palix put a gentle claw on her shoulder, speaking words of comfort that Zephyra could not hear. But she knew what they were. The same words every instructor had been saying for months now. Keep trying. Maybe you are different. Maybe your magic works another way. We believe in you. Zephyra did not believe. She had reviewed the ancient texts herself, the prophecies and histories that spoke of humans. They described beings who could reshape reality with a thought, who could create something from nothing, who wielded the fundamental forces of creation itself. Maya Chen could not even make a pebble float. Either the texts were wrong, or this human was defective, or worst of all, humanity had somehow lost their gift during their long isolation from galactic society. The commander turned away from the observation window, her long robes of living crystal chiming softly as she moved. She had reports to file, an academy to run, and a growing concern that humanity's admission to the Galactic Council had been premature. If they truly had no magic, then they were just another primitive species, hardly worth the attention they had received. She was halfway to her office when the alarms began to scream. The sound was something Zephyra had heard only twice before in her 400-year life. A deep, resonant howl that seemed to come from everywhere at once. A warning that bypassed the ears entirely and screamed directly into the soul. Breach. Hostile presence. All stations to combat readiness. The Academy's shields, which had held for 2,000 years against every threat the galaxy could produce, were failing. Zephyra ran. Her crystalline body could move faster than most species when necessary, and she crossed the Academy's central hub in seconds. The main control center was chaos. Dozens of species worked at their stations, their various forms of magic being poured into the defensive systems. Screens showed the exterior of the Academy, and what Zephyra saw made her ancient blood run cold. They were void entities, creatures of pure darkness that existed between dimensions, feeding on magical energy. The last major incursion had been 300 years ago, and it had taken the combined might of 12 worlds to drive them back. Now 7 of them surrounded the Academy, their forms shifting and writhing, tentacles of absolute blackness reaching out to tear at the shields. Where they touched, reality itself seemed to crack and bleed. All students to emergency shelters, Zephyra commanded. Her voice carried the weight of authority and crystal magic, amplifying across the entire station. Combat instructors to defensive positions. Someone tell me how they found us. Commander, one of her officers called out, a young singing one whose voice trembled with fear. The entities are not attacking the shields randomly. They are focused on one location. The training arena, level 7. They are trying to reach something specific, level 7, where Maya Chen had been training. Zephyrah's mind raced. Void entities were drawn to powerful magic, yes, but they usually attacked indiscriminately. For them to focus on one location meant something in that area was generating an enormous magical signature, something they wanted desperately to consume. But the only thing in that arena was one failed human cadet and her instructor, unless the texts were right after all. Evacuate level 7 immediately, Zephyrah ordered, already moving toward the transport tubes. I am going down there. The journey took 30 seconds that felt like hours. When the tube doors opened, Zephyrah emerged into a scene of controlled panic. Students and instructors were streaming toward the emergency exits, their various forms of magic creating a light show of defensive shields and protective charms. But they were all moving away from the arena, where a sound like reality tearing echoed through the corridors. Zephyrah pushed through the crowd until she reached the arena entrance. The massive doors were still open, and through them she could see something impossible. The far wall was cracking, not like stone breaking, but like glass shattering, revealing absolute darkness beyond. A tentacle of void stuff was reaching through, and it was reaching specifically toward Maya Chen, who stood frozen in the center of the arena floor. Instructor Paleodix was already unconscious, thrown against a wall by some force Zephyrah had not seen. Maya was alone, staring up at the approaching darkness with wide eyes. But she was not running. She was not screaming. She was standing absolutely still, and as Zephyrah watched, she saw something that made her question everything she thought she knew about magic. Maya was glowing. Not with the bright, clear light of conventional magic. Not with the defined colors and patterns that every species produced when they cast spells. Maya Chen was surrounded by something that looked like heat shimmer, like the distortion of air above a fire. And within that shimmer, Zephyrah could see shapes forming and dissolving. Images, ideas, possibilities. She saw machines that did not exist. She saw worlds transformed. She saw bridges between stars and cities beneath oceans. She saw 1,000 impossible things all swirling around the human in a storm of potential. The void tentacle recoiled from that shimmer, as if burned. It writhed and twisted, pulling back toward the crack in reality. But 2 more pushed through to replace it. They were hungry, desperately hungry. And Zephyrah suddenly understood why. Void entities fed on magic, yes, but what they truly craved was creation itself. And humans did not just use magic. They were magic. They were walking, breathing fonts of pure creative force, their very thoughts generating new realities that begged to be born into existence. The ancient texts had not been wrong. They had simply been unable to properly describe what humanity was. They were not powerful because they could cast great spells. They were powerful because every thought, every dream, every moment of imagination was itself an act of creation. Maya Chen could not levitate a sphere because that was not how her magic worked. Her magic was not about manipulating what existed. It was about bringing into existence what did not, and the void entities had found her. Maya, Zephyrah shouted, running into the arena despite every instinct screaming at her to flee. Maya, you need to run. The human turned to look at her. And Zephyrah saw something in those brown eyes that she had not seen before. Not fear, though fear was there. Not confusion, though the human was clearly overwhelmed. What Zephyrah saw was recognition, understanding. Maya Chen had just realized what she was, and the implications of that realization were written across her face. I cannot run, Maya said, her voice surprisingly steady. They will follow me. They will break through wherever I go. I can feel them. They are starving, Commander. They are so hungry for what I am. Another crack split the air and a 3rd section of wall began to fracture. More tentacles were coming. The Academy's shields were failing faster now, the defensive magic being drained away by the entity's presence. In minutes, maybe less, the entire station would be exposed. Thousands of students and instructors would be at the mercy of creatures that knew no mercy. Then what do we do? Zephyrah asked, coming to stand beside the human. If they were to die, they would die together. If you cannot run and we cannot fight them, what option remains? Maya looked down at her hands, at the shimmer of impossible things that surrounded her. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were filled with something Zephyra had seen before in warriors and heroes and those who stood against impossible odds. Determination. Pure, stubborn human determination. The option that remains, Maya said softly, is for me to stop trying to do magic the way you do it, and start doing magic the way humans do. I have been trying to learn your spells, your techniques, your ancient ways, but that is not what I am. You manipulate creation. We create. So maybe it is time I started creating something these things really do not want to face. The shimmer around Maya intensified, and Zephyra felt something shift in the fabric of reality itself. The human was not casting a spell. She was doing something far more fundamental and terrifying. She was imagining, truly imagining, with the full force of human creativity behind it. And in the space between thought and reality, in that impossible place where dreams took form, something new was being born. The void entities felt it too. Their tentacles thrashed with sudden urgency, no longer reaching to consume but reaching to stop what was happening. But they were too late. Maya Chen had finally understood her gift, and she was about to show the galaxy why humans were called the Creator's children. What happened next would change everything. The power of creation. The shimmer around Maya intensified until it became almost painful to look at directly. Zephyra's crystalline eyes, designed to perceive magical energies across 17 different spectrums, struggled to process what they were witnessing. It was like staring into the heart of a newborn star, except instead of a light and heat, what poured from Maya Chen was pure possibility. The commander had studied magic for centuries, had mastered techniques that took other species lifetimes to learn. But this was something entirely different. This was not the careful manipulation of existing forces. This was Genesis. Maya's breathing had become steady, almost meditative. Her eyes remained open but unfocused, as if she were looking at something beyond the physical world. Around her, the air itself began to crystallize into shapes that should not exist. Zephyra saw what looked like mathematical equations written in fire, geometric patterns that hurt to comprehend, and fragments of machines that seemed to operate on principles physics had not yet discovered. The human was not just imagining these things. She was pulling them from the realm of pure concept into the edge of reality, holding them in that liminal space where thought became matter. The void entities seemed to sense the danger. Their tentacles lashed out with renewed fury, but something was different now. As they approached Maya, they began to slow, as if moving through increasingly thick resistance. The shimmer around the human was not just energy. It was becoming a barrier, a wall made of concentrated creativity that the entities could not pass. Zephyra watched in amazement as one tentacle made contact with that barrier and simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not pushed back, but erased from reality as if it had never been there at all. "What are you doing?" Zephyra whispered, though she was not sure if Maya could even hear her anymore. "I am building," Maya replied, her voice distant but clear. "That is what humans do, Commander. We build. We take what does not exist and we make it real. We dream of flying, so we build machines that let us soar. We dream of talking across vast distances, so we build devices that carry our voices. We dream of touching the stars, so we build ships that can take us there. Every tool, every structure, every piece of technology my species has ever created started as nothing more than an idea in someone's mind. We are not magical in the way you understand magic. We are magical because we refuse to accept that impossible means impossible." As she spoke, the shimmer began to take on more definite form. Zephyra could see structures emerging from the chaos of possibility. They looked like nothing she had ever seen before, yet somehow they made perfect sense. Walls of interlocking energy that adapted and shifted to counter each movement of the void entities. Weapons that fired not physical projectiles but concepts. Ideas so fundamentally opposed to the nature of the void that they caused the creatures actual pain. Shields that did not merely block but actively rewrote the space they protected, making it inhospitable to beings of pure entropy. The void entities screamed. The sound was not audible in any conventional sense, but Zephyra felt it in her bones, in her soul. A wail of frustration and hunger that echoed across dimensions. They had come for an easy feast, expecting to find a young human whose power was just awakening, someone they could consume before she learned to defend herself. Instead, they had found something far more dangerous. They had found a human who understood what she was and was not afraid to use it. More cracks appeared in the arena walls as additional entities tried to force their way through. The Academy's shields were nearly gone now, barely a flicker of protective magic remaining. Zephyra could hear the emergency broadcasts echoing through the corridors, instructors trying to maintain order as students panicked. In minutes, the entities would breach the Academy proper and thousands would die. Unless Maya could do the impossible. "Can you protect the entire station?" Zephyra asked urgently. "There are over 3,000 beings on this Academy. Can you extend your protection to cover them all?" Maya's expression tightened with strain. "I do not know. I have never done anything like this before. 6 months ago I could not make a pebble float. Now you are asking me to shield an entire space station from interdimensional predators using magic I do not understand and barely control." "Yes," Zephyra said simply. "I am asking exactly that. Because you are human, and humans do impossible things every day. You said it yourself. Your species refuses to accept limitations, so refuse this one. Refuse to let these creatures win. Refuse to let anyone on this station die. Build something that makes that refusal real." For a moment, Maya looked at the commander with an expression that was equal parts terror and determination. Then she smiled. A quick, fierce grin that reminded Zephyra of every human trait she had read about in the ancient texts. Stubbornness. Audacity. The absolute refusal to give up even when giving up was the only logical choice. It was not rational. It was not sensible. It was completely uniquely human. "All right then," Maya said. "Let me show you what happens when a human really starts building." She closed her eyes and spread her arms wide. The shimmer around her exploded outward like a wave, rushing through the arena, through the walls, through the corridors beyond. Zephyra felt it pass through her, a sensation like being unmade and remade in an instant, and when it passed she was somehow different, not changed in any physical way but marked, connected. She could feel Maya's presence now, a bright point of awareness that seemed to be everywhere at once throughout the Academy. The void entities felt it too, and their screams of frustration turned to something that might have been fear. They pushed harder against the barriers between dimensions, trying to force more of themselves through before whatever Maya was doing could be completed. But they were too late. The human's power was not something that could be stopped once it began. It was momentum and inevitability, the same force that had driven humanity from caves to cities, from walking to flying, from one small planet to reaching for the stars. Through the Academy's sensor systems, Zephyra watched what was happening on a larger scale. The shimmer that surrounded Maya was spreading through the entire station like roots growing through soil. Wherever it touched, reality became more solid, more real, more resistant to the void entity's influence. The cracks they had torn in the walls began to seal themselves. The tentacles that had pushed through began to withdraw, not because they wanted to, but because they could no longer exist in spaces where Maya's creative force had taken hold. But it was not just defensive. Zephyra could see structures forming throughout the Academy, constructs of pure creative energy that served purposes she could barely understand. Here, a web of force that distributed the entity's attacks across thousands of points, making their strength meaningless. There, a field that accelerated time locally, aging the void matter until it decayed into nothing. Everywhere, solutions to problems that conventional magic had never been able to solve, because conventional magic worked within the rules of reality. Maya was writing new rules. The human herself was trembling now, her face pale with effort. Blood trickled from her nose, and Zephyra realized with alarm that this level of creation was taking a physical toll. No matter how powerful Maya's magic was, she was still just one person. Still limited by the constraints of her mortal body, she was burning herself out to save them all. "Maya, stop," Zephyra called out. "You are hurting yourself. There must be another way." "There is not," Maya gasped. "This is what they came for, Commander. This is what the void entities have always hunted. Humans, Creator's children. We are the only species in the galaxy whose magic can truly hurt them, because we are the only ones who create, instead of manipulate. They have been hunting us since before we left Earth. They are why humanity stayed hidden for so long. They are why the ancient humans disappeared from the galaxy 10,000 years ago. They were not lost, they were devoured." Zephyra felt her heart sink. "Then why reveal yourself now? Why give them a target?" Maya opened her eyes, and despite the blood and the pain written across her face, she was smiling. "Because I am not alone anymore. I am at an academy full of magical beings from across the galaxy. I am surrounded by teachers and students who have spent lifetimes mastering their crafts. And maybe, just maybe, it is time humans stopped hiding and started teaching the rest of you how to fight back. She raised one hand, and Zephyra felt a pull, a connection forming between her own magic and Maya's creative force. It was like nothing she had ever experienced, as if her careful, precise crystal magic was being invited to dream, to imagine, to become more than it had ever been. Through the connection, she could feel thousands of other presences, every magical being in the academy, all being offered the same invitation. Work with me, Maya's intention seemed to say. Show me your magic and I will show you mine. Let us build something together that neither of us could build alone. Zephyra did not hesitate. She poured her magic into the connection, her mastery of crystal and light joining with Maya's creative chaos. Around the academy, thousands of others did the same. The Thoraxians with their time manipulation, the singing ones with their matter weaving, even the humble Gribnaks with their simple growth magic. Every species, every technique, every form of magic that had been developed over millions of years of galactic civilization, all flowing into and through one human girl who stood at the center of it all. And Maya took that power and built something beautiful. It was not a weapon, though it could destroy. It was not a shield, though it could protect. What Maya Chen created in that moment was something the galaxy had not seen in 10,000 years. It was a beacon, a declaration, a message written across dimensions in letters of pure creative force that said simply, "Humanity has returned. We are the Creator's children. We are the builders and dreamers. And we are done hiding from you." The void entities broke. Their tentacles withdrew. The cracks they had torn sealed completely, and Zephyra felt their presence retreating across dimensional boundaries. They were not destroyed, she knew. Beings like that could not be truly destroyed, but they had been driven back, and more importantly, they had been hurt. They had learned that humans were no longer easy prey, that the species they had hunted and nearly destroyed had found allies and learned to fight back. The beacon Maya had built would stand as a warning. Come for humanity now, and you come for all of us. As the immediate danger passed, Maya's shimmer began to fade. The human swayed on her feet, and Zephyra rushed forward to catch her before she fell. Maya's eyes were glazed with exhaustion, but she was still conscious, still aware enough to speak. Did it work? She whispered. Did I save them? You saved us all, Zephyra replied softly. And you taught us something we had forgotten. Magic is not just about mastering what exists. It is about having the courage to create what does not. You have reminded us why your species was called the Creator's children. Not because you are more powerful than the rest of us, but because you dream bigger. Maya managed a weak laugh. I still cannot make that stupid sphere float. Perhaps, Zephyra said with a smile, because you were never meant to. Your magic is not about moving small objects. It is about moving entire civilizations forward. It is about building bridges between impossible ideas and making them real. That is a far more valuable gift. Medical teams were arriving now, rushing to check on Maya and the injured instructor Palix. The academy's systems were coming back online, shields reforming stronger than before, reinforced by the lingering traces of Maya's creative force. Throughout the station, beings from dozens of species were staring at their hands and their magic with new eyes, wondering what they might build if they dared to dream as humans did. The galaxy had spent 3 years trying to teach humanity how to use magic. In one desperate moment, Maya Chen had taught the galaxy something far more important. She had taught them how to imagine. As Zephyra helped carry the exhausted human toward the medical bay, she found herself thinking about the ancient texts again. They had called humans the Creator's children, beings of ultimate magical potential, but they had gotten one thing wrong. Humanity's magic was not just potential. It was not something waiting to be unlocked or mastered. It was something humans had been using all along. In every tool they built, every problem they solved, every impossible dream they refused to stop chasing. They had been magical since the moment the first human looked at a distant star and wondered if they could touch it. They had been magical when they built fires to hold back the darkness, when they carved wheels from stone, when they launched themselves into space on pillars of controlled explosion. Every act of human innovation, every moment of creativity, every refusal to accept that something could not be done was an act of magic more profound than any spell. And now, finally, the rest of the galaxy was beginning to understand. In the weeks that followed, the academy would change. Human students would arrive not to learn the magic of other species but to share their own. Courses would be developed on creative thinking, on innovation, on the art of building something from nothing but imagination and determination. The void entities would remain a threat, but they would never again face a galaxy unprepared for them. Because humanity had returned. The builders had come home, and they were ready to teach the rest of creation how to dream. Maya Chen, the failed cadet who could not cast a simple levitation spell, would become the first human to hold the title of Master Creator at the Galactic Academy. She would not be the last. In time, humans would spread throughout the galaxy, not as conquerors but as partners, bringing their unique magic to every species they encountered. They would build and dream and create, refusing to accept limitations, pushing boundaries, making the impossible real with the same stubborn determination that had carried them from cave to cosmos. And the galaxy would be forever changed by one simple truth that Maya had proven in that desperate moment when the void came calling. Magic was not about power. It was about possibility. And no species in the universe believed in possibility quite like humans did. That was the magic only humans could wield. Not the magic of manipulation, but the magic of creation. Not the magic of what was, but the magic of what could be. It was the magic of builders and dreamers, of those who looked at the darkness and decided to build a light. It was the magic of refusing to accept that impossible meant impossible. It was the magic of hope. And hope, as the galaxy was learning, was the most powerful magic of all.